No good deed goes unpunished. Isn't that how the saying goes? Well, South Africa finds itself back on the UK's red list after our scientists sequenced and shared their findings on the new Omicron variant. It's already been detected in over a dozen countries, yet travel to and from South Africa, of course, banned. Today, the G7 held an emergency meeting on the variant. Let's get the latest from our London reporter. That, of course, is Olly Barratt. So, Olly, our president calling for the travel ban imposed on South Africa to be reversed, saying it's uncalled for, unfair and without scientific justification. Is the UK government giving any consideration to actually lifting this ban?
The position at the moment, Shahan, remains from the UK government's side that it will review that decision after 3 weeks. So that would now be in around 2.5 weeks' time from now. Now, we have seen throughout the pandemic that when it comes to travel restrictions and countries being on red lists or green lists or whatever it might be, that the government has normally stuck to that 3-week review period, but from time to time, if it has felt necessary to move more quickly, it has been able to do so at its own judgment. So it's not entirely out of the question that before that 3-week period is up, that the government decides to make a change. But I think it's unlikely for this reason, which is that the government has said it probably won't want to make any significant changes to, for example, South Africa's place on the travel red list until it knows much more about the new variant and its potential transmissibility and its potential escape from vaccine protection. And I think we won't know that really for at least 2 or 3 weeks. And so the chances are, I'm afraid to say, that it probably is going to be that next review point at which we get a decision from the UK government either to keep South Africa on the red list or move it back off.
Yeah, interesting. So there are several countries that have, of course, identified the Omicron variant. Have they also appeared on the UK's red list?
Not all of them, and that is the slightly curious thing that we haven't yet really got an answer to from the government about why it does appear to be African countries, and particularly initially those southern African countries, including South Africa, that went onto the red list. I think one of the rationale behind that is the idea that the scientists believe that there is an outbreak in the southern African region of this particular variant, whereas the other cases that had been identified up to now seem to be mostly individual isolated cases related to travel to and from Africa. Now, that picture may well change. We have now at least 9 cases in this country having been identified, a number of cases in other European nations too, but then the UK government and other European governments will have the difficult decision about whether they effectively need to put all countries onto travel red lists and essentially shut down international travel. I think there is a resistance to doing that, and that therefore is going to lead us down the possible path of having that discrepancy where you have a number of countries like South Africa on the red list, other countries seeing cases and outbreaks growing, potentially not going onto the red list. There's a huge amount of uncertainty, and certainly those questions, therefore, about unfairness will potentially persist as well.
Yeah, it definitely doesn't seem fair if the same isn't applied to other countries, isn't it? So tourism industry, of course, here and in the UK will be affected over the next 3 weeks if there's no change in this travel ban. What's the word from key industry players there?
There's real anger, particularly about those who are related specifically to the routes between the UK and South Africa, a very lucrative route normally at this time of year. Hundreds of people planning to go to South Africa either for holidays, to get some winter sunshine or to visit relatives. And then more broadly in the travel sector, there's also real concern about the uncertainty that these decisions have added into the mix for all sorts of other destinations, and whether holidaymakers will want to make bookings if they're not sure whether the new variant is going to lead to all sorts of other routes being potentially shut down at short notice as well. We should also say the government's tweaked its travel rules for people coming into this country, even from non-red listed destinations, so that you have to now get a PCR test on arrival and isolate until you get the results of those PCR tests. Well, that knocks out really the idea of, for example, a long weekend in London. People aren't going to want necessarily to fly in on a Friday, get tested and wait for their results before they can go out and enjoy the sights of the city. So real concern in the industry, not just related to those South African destinations and tour operators and airlines, but also the implications more broadly for the rest of the sector.
Yeah, and then, of course, the G7 health ministers are meeting today to discuss the Omicron variant. Any word from that meeting yet?
Well, we're about to hear in the next 5 minutes from Sajid Javid, the UK Health Secretary, who'll be up in the House of Commons giving an update to MPs, which would lead you to believe that he's finished with that call with his fellow G7 health ministers. So we should get an update in moments. The one final thing I will say about the South Africa issue is that every time, and I think we'll hear this again from Sajid Javid in a few moments, every time a government minister or official speaks about the new variant at the moment, they are glowing in their praise of South Africa and its scientific community. Jonathan Van Tam, the Deputy Chief Medical Officer, has just been speaking. He says that he wanted to pay tribute to the truly excellent scientists in South Africa. He said we have again to pay tribute to the excellence of South African science, paying tribute, he said, to their transparency in alerting the world to this new variant at what he described as the earliest moment they possibly could have done so. So real praise for the South African community, but then that the scientific community, but that then feeds back into those questions about whether South Africa is being punished for doing the right thing. Yeah,
if only the leaders could think the same way. Thanks for your time, appreciate it. Our UK correspondent, Olly Barratt. I almost clicked my tongue hearing that, because, I'm so angered by how these countries have reacted to our scientists' work, actually picking up this variant, telling the world about it so that it was an early warning system, basically, for everyone else.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you've probably seen the meme doing the round saying there's a great difference between something discovered in South Africa and something discovered by South Africans. However, if indeed, and we still don't know the origins of Omicron, if indeed it has originated in Southern Africa or somewhere else in Africa, it does speak to low vaccination levels, which are a problem. We know that you can easily circulate the virus and it can mutate in your system if you are unvaccinated and don't have immunity.